Welcome to this week in the world of wrestling.
Welcome to TWitWoW, the best wrestling podcast made for wrestling fans, by wrestling fans, on the web today. I'm John, that's my co-Orton commentary, Ashton, and this is our Monday Night Raw Review UK edition, as tonight we hail from London, England, and I have to say, I really enjoyed this show tonight, and I also have to say, for a 3-hour program, you guys normally know from me that the third hour usually tends to drag, but this whole show seemed to pretty much fly by tonight. I really enjoyed the matches we got. The crowd was awesome as always. We got some storyline developments on all fronts. We even got some character development in the Divas division, which I'm excited to talk about. So an all-around solid episode from where I'm sitting, Ashton. What did you think of it?
Yeah, it was pretty solid. A scale 1 to 10, somewhere in like the 7.5 range, somewhere around there. Not on the same level as the last 2 episodes, but I would still say it was pretty good. There really aren't any, I guess Reigns' Big Show would be the only one, but other than that, there aren't really any feuds or storylines that are going on right now that I roll my eyes at.
Right, I completely agree with you, really on all counts, even with the Reigns Big Show sentiments. But with that said, I mean, let's get right into it, guys. Our first segment, Heat of the Night. And, I mean, if I was to have a nitpick, because I don't have any heat tonight, but if I was having one nitpick, I have to say that I felt like that Roman Reigns Big Show segment kind of dragged on a little bit too long for my liking.
Yeah.
I felt like you could have cut it down just a little bit. But really, I mean, again, that's the nittiest of picks, or pickiest of nits, I think is how you've said it before.
Yeah.
So, you know, that's the only grievance that I really wanted to air here.
Yeah, I don't know. I guess here's my thing. Every time the Big Show is on TV, all I want to do is tell him that nobody likes you and you should go away. But that's kind of his job because he's a heel, right?
Right.
But I feel like he's getting the wrong kind of heat. Like, I feel like it's devolved from, we hate you, Big Show, to go away, Big Show. We don't want to see you anymore.
Yeah. I mean, here's the thing, dude. It's like, how can I put this? Because I want to frame my opinion very carefully here.
It's one of those things to me where it's not even people, like, people are cheering for Roman Reigns, but not because they like him. They're cheering for him because he's going against Big Show.
Well, he's the lesser of two evils.
Right, but that's the thing, though. Like, they're trying to use Big Show to get Reigns over, but it's a temporary kind of over. It's not the right kind of over. It's the kind of over that as soon as he goes against somebody else who isn't Big Show, it's going to go away.
Right, absolutely. I mean, I completely agree. I just think, again, you know, my problem isn't so much that they're feuding, even though obviously I'm not overly enthused about that. It's just, you know, the beatdowns seem to take a little longer than, you know, kind of necessary. Like, you throw him into the taxi, kind of stare around, throw him into the taxi again, you know, take in the other chant, which I get it, you know, he's working the atmosphere and stuff like that. And then, you know, it took him that long to just do the choke slam to kind of finish. Yeah, I think I was looking for something a bit more forceful, a bit more, you know, like you're a giant, like really throw him in there, really do something crazy. But, you know, not bad. I guess it gets its point across. But again, like you said, it's pretty much a Band-Aid on a seeping wound that is, you know, the crowd's reception to Roman Reigns. So,
yeah,
we'll see.
Yeah. All right. Do you have any other heats of the night or nitpicks or anything like that?
Absolutely not. The floor is yours.
I have 2 nitpicks.
Okay.
First of all, this is one that I'm kind of blindsiding you with because the other one we're probably going to have a little bit more of a discussion about. But then again, we might have a discussion about this too. I don't necessarily think that I like the idea that they're building the United States Championship at the expense of the Intercontinental Championship, because I mean, I think that I've been the person for years now that's been saying, maybe not years, maybe just a year, that's been saying that the United States Championship is more important than the Intercontinental Championship. But Daniel Bryan hasn't been doing jack squat, and everybody that was in contention for the Intercontinental title is now losing to the U.S. title.
Yeah, that was a great observation you made tonight when we were watching Raw together. You know, you So I mean, saying you're like, hey, I noticed that all the ladder match participants, all the people in the Intercontinental title hunt, have been answering the open challenge. And, that's interesting enough, and I can let that pass, but I think you're absolutely on the nose with your Daniel Bryan assessment, because what did he do tonight in front of a raucous crowd? Because the UK is always, an entertaining crowd. He had a backstage interaction with Kane.
Yeah, and he was obviously on hand because of that.
Exactly.
Although, I guess there is a possibility that was a pre-tape and that he wasn't on hand. I don't know.
I'm sure he'll be doing something this Thursday on SmackDown. I'd be shocked if he didn't.
Yeah, it does
personally.
kind of seem like they're turning SmackDown into the Daniel Bryan show, doesn't it?
It does, because I noticed that he's there far more frequently, in an in-ring capacity than he is on Raw. Which I think I'll be more okay with when SmackDown makes a transition to USA. I think it's either later this year or early next year.
2016.
2016, but yeah, I mean, that's still quite a ways away. Let's keep Daniel Bryan on Raw here. Let's keep the momentum going, because we were excited about the prospect of two legitimate mid-card champions, not just one really being showcased at the expense of another. So I
mean,
totally
for
get
what
your
it's
pick.
worth, I think that the concern was after WrestleMania that the world title wouldn't be around, so we would have to have two main event sort of mid-card titles. As it turns out, we still have two main event titles, but rather than having one title that's above both of them, we have one title that's below both of them.
Right.
It's just that now the main event titles are the World Championship and the U.S. Championship.
Exactly.
So, but yeah, I think the biggest thing is that, like, who's facing Daniel Bryan at Extreme Rules? Most likely Bad News Barrett, and he just lost to John Cena tonight.
Right, yeah, that's another thing, too. Great point.
So let's build up the Intercontinental title by having the number one contender lose in a U.S. title match, right? I just don't get that.
Yeah, and again, our champion just merely in a backstage segment. So,
right.
I completely sympathize with your nitpick there. What is your second nitpick?
Okay, this is one that you know about that I was telling you about before, and I wanted us to have this discussion on TWitWoW. This stipulation that the RKO is banned, obviously I don't think it's going to actually take anything away from the match, but looking at it from a casual fan's perspective, I guarantee you there are a lot of people that would have bought this pay-per-view just to see Randy Orton RKO the crap out of Seth Rollins. And I also guarantee you that a good chunk of that audience, that casual audience, hasn't necessarily been watching long enough to know that Randy Orton has a punt in his arsenal to realize that he might go for that and be more hyped up for that instead. So I feel like they kind of cost themselves some pay-per-view buys with that stipulation.
Here's the thing. They may have, right? But I guess my defense comes from a kayfabe context, because I think this is a brilliant heel maneuver by Rollins. And what I was getting ready to tell you, and what I was really excited to have this discussion about, we've seen this route before, ironically enough, from Randy Orton. Because in his Age of Orton reign in 2007, when he was feuding with Shawn Michaels, the whole thing about that feud was Shawn Michaels would keep super kicking Randy Orton in the face. I mean, sweet shin music after sweet shin music after sweet shin music. So Survivor Series 2007, Orton said, look, you want a rematch against me, you can't use the sweet shin music. If you do it, you'll be disqualified. And that forced Shawn Michaels to become, more creative in how he approached this matchup. And in the course of the match, we saw him use a crossface, an inverted figure four, and a sharpshooter, and just all kinds of maneuvers to beat Randy Orton. So I think the story here is going to be that Randy Orton is going to have to dig down deep, come up with a more unique offense, and yes, potentially, call upon the punt. And I will say that I think the 2007 story with Michaels and Orton was built up better, because Randy Orton ate a crap ton of super kicks, whereas with Rollins, he ate one RKO through an announce table when Orton, perpetrated his beatdown, which looked sick. And then, of course, everybody knows the WrestleMania RKO that he beat Rollins with. But, I'm hoping in, the coming weeks, maybe they kind of tease, maybe Orton going for it and then second-guessing himself and then whatever, kind of really play with it. We'll actually only have, I think, one more week, because Extreme Rules is on the 26th.
Yeah.
So, they really don't have, I think, too much time to make this work. But I still think in the context of building up your heel champion by making him wear down the babyface and handicap the babyface, this is a really well done kind of stipulation, and one that I honestly didn't expect, so I have to give kudos to Rollins there. They may have hurt buy rates. I agree with you. We'll see how that translates.
Well, I actually wanted to ask you a question. Do you remember what 2007 pay-per-view that match was on?
Survivor Series.
Okay.
Yeah, that was Survivor Series that year. We'll see how it goes. Hopefully, maybe Orton, if they want to do anything, maybe they could tease him going for a punt, and then that kind of reminds everybody, oh, wait, he still has that, and then it kind of builds it up for Extreme Rules if he hits it or not. But it does add a unique dimension to the matchup, especially when you consider also the stipulation that Randy Orton chose, which we'll get into a little bit later. So.
Yeah. All right. Well, I'm glad we had that discussion. Yeah, I was just looking at pay-per-view buy rates, and I mean, if I wanted to be a super douche, I could be like, oh, well, the buy rate for Survivor Series 2007 was 50,000 lower than the buy rate for Survivor Series 2006. But that was just like a steady regression. Like WWE at that point had been losing pay-per-view buy rates for years, and I mean, Survivor Series 07 had 341 as opposed to 06, which had 383. But then if you keep going on that list, 08 was at 319, 09 was at 235. Like, it just kept getting worse. So I can't even really use that as an argument because it was just a small blip on a gigantic downward spiral for WWE's pay-per-view buy rates at that point.
Right. All right. Well, so no more nitpicks or heats of the night from you then.
No, sir.